So thank you. Thank you for staying. Thank you for being here. And I have a very specific goal to do today, which is to teach you all the superhuman art of predicting the future. And it's not as unreasonable of a claim as it might seem when I start. And the first place that I want to take you is to imagine that it's an average Thursday night, and you are being dragged with a friend of yours to a concert. You know nothing about this concert. And you're picturing in your mind that it's going to be something like this, a regular music concert. But instead you show up and it's a concert like this. And you sort of hear a little bit of music in the background, you hear a guitar playing, you hear a guy starting to jam out. And it's in a weird looking conference room. And as he starts singing, you realize it's Ed Sheeran. And imagine you're in this audience for this YouTube video. And as this really talented guy is starting to play guitar, and you haven't really heard of him before, because this was a couple years ago, you're like, this guy's pretty good. And he continues playing, and he's getting into it, and it's just him, and it's a weird venue, but it's cool. And as you look at this video, and as you look at the audience around you, everybody's doing the same thing, which is they've all got their phones, and they're all trying to capture the moment, because that's what we do. We don't want to miss anything. We want to capture it for everyone. But as the camera in this YouTube video moves slowly across the audience, you notice there's this one guy. And this guy doesn't have his phone out at all. He's just tapping on his leg, he's drinking his water, he's enjoying the show. And my question for you is, what if you were that guy? Not just in this show, but what if you were that guy all the time? How would that change the way you experience the world? How would that change what you thought about or the insights you got from the things you experienced? One of my favorite quotes ever from Isaac Asimov, who most of us know as a gifted science fiction writer, but actually was a lot more than that. He wrote an entire guide to every Shakespearean play ever written. He wrote a guide to reading the Bible. At his peak, he was writing 25 books a year. A year. For anyone who's written a book, that's amazing for a lifetime. But he was writing 25 books a year. And his quote was that he's not a speed reader, he's a speed understander. And the difference between speed reading and speed understanding is the difference between trying to capture everything on your phone and being that guy with that little glass of water. Aziz Ansari style glass of water, right? For those of you who were there this morning, right? A little tiny cup. Being a speed understander. Well, what is that? Why does that make such a difference? Why is it so important to be a speed understander? What does that even mean? Well, that leads me to the future, and why predicting the future is actually so important. And I want you to imagine that there's two different qualities on an axis on a chart. On the one side you have hope for the future, and on the other side you have knowledge of the things that you know about or don't know about. And so in the bottom left-hand corner, you've got people who are unhappy. They have no hope, they have no knowledge, they're stuck in jobs that they hate, they can't go anywhere, and they don't know how to get better. It's a really tough place to be. None of us want to be in that place. Hopefully you're not in that place right now. Slightly better than that, but still bad, is when you have a lot of knowledge but no hope. These are the climate change is going to kill the world people. The people who know that Miami is going to sink into the ocean by, 2015 now? Maybe 2020. In the next 5 years, Miami's going to be gone, right? These are the doomsday people. The glass is always half empty. We know these people, right? These categories describe people that we know in our lives. Now, the flip opposite of that person is the one who has a lot of hope, but no knowledge, right? That person's annoying. We hate that person. They're happy, but they don't even know why they're happy. They're just happy all the time, unreasonably. I don't get those people, right? Maybe we would like to be those people sometimes, but they're just weird. But then there's that last category, that fourth upper right-hand quadrant. If you ever see a chart like this, it's usually the top right that you want to be, right? That's the good place. And the good place is where you have a lot of hope for the future and where you have a lot of knowledge. And that's where you're profitable and you're happy. And that's what I want for all of us. That's what I want for me. That's what I want for you, to be profitable and happy. And we can get there. And I think that being able to predict the future will get us there. So what is the future? Well, the future for me is about trends. And I talk a lot about trends, business trends, trends in our behavior, why we do the things we do, and how that's changing from year to year. And my definition of a trend is a curated observation about the accelerating present. So I don't believe that a trend is something that's going to happen at some uncertain point in the future, but that we're just guessing at right now. I believe that a trend has something to do with the present right now. And if we can learn to predict the accelerating present, that is the things that are happening right now, that will happen more frequently and with more impact in the future, then we can start to predict the future. So that's what we want to be able to do. And the three things that I look for when I do a lot of my trend research is I look for a quantifiable idea, something I can define. I look for whether it's accelerating, and I look for whether it's having an impact, whether it's changing the way that we buy or sell or believe in anything. Those are the things I look for. But that typically is something that's done by a very specific group of people. Trend forecasters, trend spotters, analysts, futurists. There's lots of words to describe these people, and most of these words tend to describe someone kind of like this, right? Somebody who's got some sort of knowledge and they're sitting on top of that knowledge and they're disseminating it to the rest of the world, right? We see those people as gurus, sort of, like this guy, guru-esque, I guess. Not exactly a guru, but sort of like a guru. But I think that anyone can learn to do it. And the key to learning to do it is actually one fundamental skill. And I realized this actually when I was taking a flight back home to DC, where I live, from a speaking event that I was at in Norway. And at this event, I heard about a guy named Christian Ringes, who's a Norwegian billionaire. And Christian has a pretty quirky habit, even for a billionaire, which is he has a collection. And he's very proud of this collection. And his collection is of mini liquor bottles. He has more than 50,000 of them. His collection of liquor bottles, in fact, got him into predictable trouble with his wife, who looked at all of these liquor bottles and said, "That's a great collection, but it needs to get out of the house. We don't want these in our house anymore. They're cluttering up everything." For anybody who's married or living with someone who doesn't appreciate the value of their collection, you'll understand that. And so Christian came up with a typically billionaire-oriented solution to his problem, which is he went and he built a museum in Oslo for his liquor bottles called the Mini Bottle Gallery, which is now an event venue where you can go and have speaking events and dinners and all sorts of things. And as you walk into this Mini Bottle Gallery, you see something pretty interesting, which is they've managed to make all of these thousands of mini liquor bottles meaningful. And the way they do it is with the same principle that every museum uses, which is curation. Through curation, they make noise into meaning. Curation is the art of adding an experience to something that doesn't necessarily have that experience inherently. Liquor bottles on their own are not an experience. But walking through the Mini Bottle Gallery and walking through rooms that are dedicated to the Amsterdam Red Light District, or walking through rooms that are dedicated to airline bottles given away by airlines, mini liquor bottles given away by airlines. These are experiences. They're kind of interesting. It's quirky. It's a little odd, maybe laughable, but it's an experience. And it's interesting because of that. So if you take that principle of curation one step further, one of the things people talk about and think about when it comes to trends is that trends are like finding a needle in a haystack. And actually, I think trend curation is the exact opposite of that. It's spending most of your time taking the hay and gathering it so that you can put the needle in the middle of it. And the needle is the trend. But you don't have to search for it, you can define it, which is a place of empowerment instead of a place of seeking. So the Haystack Method is actually what I call it. And it involves these 5 steps. And the 5 steps are basically gathering information, which is saving interesting ideas, then aggregating them, curating them into clusters, meaningful clusters, then naming them, creating elegant descriptions for these ideas, then elevating them to bigger, more universal, more human themes, and finally proving them, so validating them without bias. Now that's a key one, because if I declare a trend, for example, to be that 2015 is going to be the year of hammers and I have a hammer company, that is biased, right? So one of the things that you've got to be able to do is eliminate bias. But that's the basic principle, right? That's how the pieces fit together. But just telling you the principles isn't inherently valuable for you. And so what I want to do in my talk is not just give you the process behind it, which is really kind of the nuts and bolts. But I want to actually tell you what some of these trends are and how you use them. So really what I want to do is take these curated trends that I establish and identify every year and give you 5 specific trends that I think are going to change your business this year if they haven't already. And with each one of them, I want to give you a stealable idea for how to use it in your business right now. Because one of the things that I want to do, aside from give you some interesting stories and give you a little bit of entertainment, is give you some real actionable insights, things that you can use right away. So in addition to the 5 trends, in addition to the stealable ideas, I'm then going to give you 5 specific habits for how you can change what you do right now to be able to predict the future for yourself. That's the structure of the talk. 5 trends, 5 habits, and then we're done, and you can happily go on your merry way to any sort of alcoholic beverages that are waiting for you. And that's our plan for today. Sound good? Yes? Okay. That's probably for the alcohol, but I'll take it. Yes. Okay. So the first trend is unperfection. And unperfection is the idea that products, companies, and individuals can be strategically flawed on purpose. That actually there's a value to them being flawed that make them more lovable for us. So Crocs and Uggs, are these beautiful examples of footwear? Right? Do we love them for their fashion iconic beauty? No. People who love Uggs love them because they feel great. I used to live in Australia. You know what the brand name Uggs comes from? The Australian slang word for ugly. That's the brand, Uggs. Uggs means ugly, right? That's where it came from. Crocs, not a great looking footwear, but people who wear Crocs love Crocs, right? Wired magazine had an entire issue dedicated to what the lead designer called wrong theory, which was putting things slightly sideways, putting them in misshapen ways, using the oddest colors on purpose to create discord. It's a design principle that's been around for a long, long time if you've studied design, right? This is not necessarily a new design principle, but it fits into this overall idea. It's a French supermarket called Intermarché that launched an entire campaign to try and reduce food wastage by convincing people that if you happen to see vegetables like this, because guess what? They do grow like this. They don't tend to make it to our grocery store like that because they throw them out. Food wastage. And the whole idea, you probably can't read the tagline underneath the ugly carrot, but it says, in a soup, who cares? And literally what they did is they took this carrot and they made soup out of it, and then they took a beautiful regular shaped carrot that looks like a carrot, and they made soup out of that, and then they had taste tests. And they challenged people to say which one was the ugly carrot and which one was the regular looking carrot. And guess what? Did they taste different? Of course not. They're trying to make a point. And they're making a point by using imperfect fruit. And once people saw that, now they have an entire section where they sell this imperfect fruit and vegetables, and people buy it. Because they're training their customer to say, you know what, we know what a carrot's supposed to look like, but it's okay. It'll still taste okay. Maybe we should use that food instead of throwing it out. There's food that's engineered to be flawed on purpose. Now, I don't know if you've studied McDonald's. Whoa, that was cool. Like weird, something's happening. I don't know if you've studied McDonald's technology that they have for all of their food, but they have the technology to make the perfect hockey puck egg McMuffin, right? We've all seen that. It's an iconic piece of food. Then they have the egg white McMuffin, which they recently launched, and it looks like a human made it with their hands, and it's not a hockey puck, right? So they have the hockey puck egg making technology, and they've chosen not to utilize that technology for the new egg white McMuffin because they want it to look like someone made it by hand. Oscar Mayer spent 2 years developing the technology to make their hand-carved turkey breast look like it was carved by hand. Was it actually carved by hand? Of course not. It's done in a factory, but they want it to look like it's carved by hand. Domino's with their artisan pizza, any artisan food that's made, they want it to look imperfect on purpose, right? The Hans Brinker Budget Hotel in Amsterdam, one of my favorite hotel stories, they actively promote the bad parts of their experience. Sorry for being excellent in losing your luggage. Don't ask me to take you to the Hans Brinker Budget Hotel, is what the guy carries the sign outside of the train station, right? Hans Brinker, welcome to the Hans Brinker Budget Hotel, Amsterdam. This is our marketing copy. The Hans Brinker Budget Hotel has been proudly disappointing travelers for 40 years, boasting levels of comfort comparable to a minimum security prison. The Hans Brinker also offers some plumbing and an intermittently open canteen serving a wide range of dishes based on runny eggs. They have brochures with asterisks next to all of the items that are not included, such as linens, windows, curtains, maid service, lamps. They have cardboard cutouts for items they don't offer. For example, soap, hair dryers. Their games room is a Post-it note because they don't actually have a games room. In the desirable places list of Amsterdam, that includes great hotels, they are directly below an abandoned mine shaft. And as if all of this amazing marketing wasn't enough to convince you to stay here, they make a bold brand promise, which is the Hans Brinker Budget Hotel. It can't get any worse, but we'll do our best. This budget hotel is one of the most frequently booked budget hotels, hostels basically, in Amsterdam. Always sold out, and people love it. Why? All of their marketing talks about how crap an experience, how could they possibly create a more crap experience? They barely have beds. Forget about toilet paper or maid service, and yet everyone's staying there. The marketing has become so iconic that you walk in to check in for your room, and the only things you can do is check into your room, or you can buy a book, Absolute Vodka style, of all of their marketing over the last 10 years because it's become so iconic. Why are people staying there? They're not staying there for comfort, right? Raise your hand if you've maybe now or in your past traveled around Europe and backpacked and done that type of trip. Okay, now keep your hand up if you had a lot of money when you did that. Right. So their audience is not traveling for luxury, they're traveling for stories. And what better story than to talk about staying at the worst hotel in the world, the one that barely has toilet paper, and surviving? Isn't that a great story? Isn't that Instagram worthy? Isn't that immediately shareable? And of course, that's what happens. And that's why people love it. And that's why they talk about it. It's imperfect on purpose, and it works. So one of the things I promised you was a stealable idea for each one of these trends. And the stealable idea here is use the truth to embrace your imperfection. Not the best, but still good. Hey, guess what? That's the truth. I flew here on United Airlines. I take United Airlines a lot because I live in DC and that's a well-connected airline for that city. And it strikes me that this principle could be so transformative for United because a lot of the experience is not entirely truthful, right? I mean, I got on a flight a couple weeks ago, and the CEO has that video that they show you, and the video starts off with Jeff, my buddy Jeff Smizek, who's now not having a good time. But he's talking about how United, this is a real quote from the video, by the way. He says, United has been moving cargo a lot longer than they've been moving people. And you're sitting there thinking, yeah, man, I kind of feel a little bit like cargo. So I see that skill set for you. But that's not a consumer-facing message, right? If I'm traveling on United as a passenger, do I really care how good they are at cargo? Of course not. I care if they're going to get me there on time, if the pilot is not drunk and is actually going to deliver me to my place, and if I have slightly more than like a pencil's width between the person sitting next to me, right? Imagine if Jeff, instead of saying that, used this principle and said, hi, imagine I'm Jeff, now I'm channeling Jeff, or whoever the new guy's going to be, or woman is going to be, right? Hi, I'm the CEO of United. We have 4,000 planes. We have currently fixed up 2,500 of them. They're actually pretty nice. If you happen to be on one of the other 1,500, yeah, we know it sucks, but we're going to fix it. We're trying to, right? Imagine if they said that, which probably happens to be closer to the truth, right? But they don't tend to give us that, right? They tend to give us their prowess in cargo. We don't care about that, right? Be human, be real, be truthful. Makes a difference. Okay, second trend. Second trend is the reluctant marketer. And this is all about, or at least mostly, about content marketing. It's mostly about the story that you tell to people and using that content to educate and sell people in a reluctant way. So the word reluctant is very deliberate. What it means is you're trying first to be useful and valuable, and second, to market and promote. Because if you're able to be useful and valuable, you will market and promote and actually sell. Because you solved somebody's problem, you answered their question, right? That's the principle behind content, that's the nutshell, right? There's been lots of sessions about marketing and content marketing, and they talk about things like this. They talk about brand storytelling, but nobody comes up and says, oh man, I wish I could have more branded content today. Oh, my day would be complete if I just had more branded content. Right? Do you think James Cameron, when he filmed Titanic or when he filmed Avatar, finished 10 years of production, went to his team and said, you know what, I think people are going to love this piece of content? No, he doesn't call his movies content, right? He calls them art, he calls them experiences, he calls them stories, he calls them anything but content, right? Because nobody wants content. They want answers, they want stories, they want something useful, something valuable, right? Weber Grills, for more than 10 years, has been producing books about how to grill. If you walk into one of the few remaining Barnes & Noble bookstores, into the cookbook section, you walk into the grilling and backyard barbecue section, chances are several of the books will have been published by Weber. That's content marketing. And that was way before people were blogging. That was way before some of the cool inbound marketing stuff we can do now. That was just a brand saying, you know what? Before someone grills, they're probably going to need to learn how to grill. And if we become the brand that teaches them how to grill and gives them the recipes for how to grill, they'll probably end up with one of our grills. And that's what happens. Pretty smart. There's a theater in Barcelona that has decided that instead of charging their customers to go to a stand-up comedy show, they're going to install tablets on the back of every chair, and they're going to track your facial reactions. And based on how frequently you laugh, that'll be how much they charge you. So you get charged per laugh. It's pay per laugh. And they guarantee to everybody who comes into this show that it's going to be funny. Because you know what? If it's not funny, you don't pay. Their experience itself is telling a story. They don't really have to even market that. They just tell people about it and they tell somebody else. Can you believe it? This place that I went to and it's a pay per laugh model? It's so cool. And their bookings through the roof and their profitability through the roof. Hilton Suggests, example many of you may be familiar with. It's a brand, a hotel brand, going to Twitter and just answering questions. Random questions. From people who probably aren't staying at a Hilton. Or who they really have no way of validating whether they're staying at a Hilton. But they answer the questions anyway. Why? They're trying to be helpful. And the idea is if they can be helpful, maybe people will come back. Maybe they'll say, oh, maybe I should stay at a Hilton next time. So the stealable idea here is tell a better story. Now, how many people have a bottle of soy sauce in their fridge? Okay, now, how many of you have thought for more than maybe 5 minutes about that soy sauce? Not really, right? Soy sauce is just one of those things we buy. But Kikkoman is a hundreds-of-year-old company from Japan that has a powerful brand story, and they created a documentary video called Make Haste Slowly. 20 minutes long, directed by an Academy Award-winning documentary director. And it starts with what may be the most powerful single line of a business-oriented documentary ever, which is when they're talking about their brand story. The first line of this movie is, it was started by a woman in a time when women didn't start companies. Wow, so cool, right? And they talk about the whole story of the brand, and all of a sudden, you're thinking to yourself, wow, I never really thought about my soy sauce, but I probably would only buy Kikkoman soy sauce from now on because I don't know what the competitors are, and they have such an amazing story, and now I actually know something about that story. So the next time I'm in a grocery store, I'll just go straight to that. Maybe I would have anyway, but now I'm even more inclined to do that, right? Because they told me a great story. They didn't give me a 2-for-1 special on soy sauce, right? They didn't say 12 extra ounces in the bottle, buy it now. They didn't go to Costco and create a turbo-injected sized bottle to feed your entire neighborhood. They could have done any of those things, right? That's what food manufacturers do. No, they created a story. And I believe in that story. And it impacts me. Third trend, everyday stardom. Everyday stardom is the idea that more personalization and data, some of the things that Mitch talked about right in the last talk, if you were here for that last talk, lead consumers to expect more moments where they can feel, act, and be rewarded like celebrities. So Disney's Magic Band, if you've been to Disney recently, you got one of these wristbands. And the wristband has all sorts of data. It allows you to open your room. It allows you to unlock your credit card information to buy stuff. You can get access to all of those photos of you like screaming as you're going down the roller coaster, all of that stuff. you can have access to. And it even has the capability to recognize you by name. So now the character, the guy who's in the Mickey Mouse suit, can walk up to you and say, hey, Rohit, how's it going? Happy birthday. How creepy is that? But also kind of cool that they know who you are. Because that's the ultimate celebrity moment, isn't it? Everybody on some level wants that moment that James Bond has when he walks into a hotel and they say to him, what do they say to him, right? They say the same thing every time. Ah, Mr. Bond, welcome back. How is the person that he knows on staff at that time to welcome him back, right? It doesn't make any sense. But how cool is that they already know who he is? He's a VIP. He's James Bond. We want that. We want to experience that, right? We see YouTube stars. We see phenomenal superstars made from YouTube channels, right? Several presentations today talked about this phenomenon. We have secret prices built into e-commerce models. So Hotels.com recognizes their best customers and says, we have a special price on this hotel just for you. You know why? You're a VIP. Nobody else gets this, just you. And you think to yourself, wow, how cool am I? I'm algorithmically popular, right? That's what we all want. We want that. If you've ever watched a Bollywood movie, you know that they typically feature very similar storylines, and they all have the same thing at some point, which is a wedding. And during the wedding, or before the wedding, there's some moment when the couple is in the field, and the girl usually does kind of one of these things, right? In the middle of the field, and then there's singing, and there's dancing, and all sorts of stuff. Well, there's a huge trend now in India for couples who are going to be married to recreate that moment from the Bollywood film as their wedding invitation. So now they can be the stars of the show, and they can talk about their wedding as if they're the superstars, right? It's about them. They're the celebrities. And what better moment to feel like a celebrity than at your own wedding? Of course you want that. So the stealable idea here is offer a VIP experience anywhere you can. There's a hotel brand in Australia called the Art Series Hotel Group. They landed on a very interesting way of offering a VIP experience, which is they promote the fact that they have the world's latest checkout. And essentially all it is if you go and you stay at one of their hotel rooms and no one else checks into that room the next day, you can check out whenever, up until, you know, it's the next day. Then you got to kind of pay for the next day. But you can have the world's latest checkout. Now, how much does that cost them if there's no other customer coming into that room, right? How costly is that? But now think about the consumer experience, right? Late checkout is something that VIPs get. It's something that elite members of some sort of loyalty program get. And if you can offer that to all of your customers at relatively low cost, you can make everybody feel like a VIP. How cool is that? And that's what they do. Okay, fourth trend, experimedia. This is social experiments and real-life interactions becoming new narratives and new forms of media. So many of us are familiar with what Dove has done for several years, right? They're essentially doing this. They're creating social experiments to illustrate to women that they are more beautiful than they think they are. That's sort of the running theme behind many of these videos that I know you guys have seen. There's independent journalists creating sort of opportunities and stories like this. So this woman had her face photoshopped in 25 countries, and this is what people came back with. Really interesting manipulations of her face to illustrate that beauty is perceived very differently from culture to culture. The entire campaign of Prudential with Dan Gilbert, social psychologist, right, is all about getting people to save for retirement. They use these dominoes and they tip over the dominoes, and it illustrates that saving a small amount of money now can turn into a large amount of money later. These are all experiments. They're real life things that turn into viral videos and interesting examples of stories. So the stealable idea here is share your own social experiments. A team of dealers, Honda dealers in Southern California, has created a campaign called the Helpful Honda campaign. And all it is all of their people who work at their dealership wearing these blue shirts and randomly going out into the community and paying people's toll, or buying them groceries, or driving around an ice cream truck and just giving away free ice cream. Randomly helpful stuff, and very, very powerful. Because it illustrates to people, hey, we're here, we're part of the community. We're here when you're ready to buy a new car too, by the way. Right? But it's all experiments. Okay, fifth trend. reverse retail. This is the idea that high-touch in-store experiences can build brand affinity and then drive purchasing online. So it flips the retail model. It's not about selling in-store. So bonobos, with their guide shops, have built this entire experience based on the fundamental insight that a lot of their customers, who are men buying men's clothing, hate walking out of a shop with a shopping bag. That's like losing for a guy. Winning is finding something to wear, ordering it, having it shipped to your house, and walking out of the store with nothing. We love that, right? That's what we want. Part of what we don't like about shopping is now we finish the work, and now we got to carry this thing around all the time. Who wants that? So they created an entire experience to just allow you to try the stuff on, figure out what fits, and then just get it shipped and you're done. It's exactly what their customers want. Flips retail. For years now, Tesco in South Korea has been testing virtual stores. So this is not a store that this girl is browsing. This is a wall of a subway underground. And what she's doing is looking at the items that are available there, and she's selecting what she wants and linking it to her phone so that those items get automatically ordered and delivered to her house. And nobody wants to carry a bottle of detergent home from the store after going to work. Everybody would love to get that shipped. But what they're doing is they're making the shopping experience seamless because you can do it while you're doing nothing else, like waiting for a train. It's perfect. Magic mirrors in fashion retail so that you can see what you're trying on. You can order different products. Are being tested in lots of retail locations, right? Many, many retailers are trying this out, this technology out. So the idea here is creating a sensory moment to share. And the experience of retail becomes less about making the sale, about converting, and it becomes more about the experience behind it. That's what's really valuable. So the secret free gift that I promised you is a download of all of the trends, because the entire book from which I took these 5 trends actually has 10 other trends. It has 15 total. And I know that I don't have enough time to go through all 15, but I also don't want to leave you hanging on the other 10. So if you're interested in getting the other ones, you can either text, I'll put this up later on as well, but you can text the word non-obvious to this short code. This postcard is available up here, so if you're kind of one of the first 50 people or whatever, I'll just leave them out here and you can grab them after the talk. But you can get a full free, totally free digital download of the book. There's no like sneaky trickle email stream after this where you'll like then get invited to buy all sorts of bigger ticket items. Like I don't have any of that. So the only thing, I'll tell you exactly what you'll get at the end, but it's basically like 2 emails and the full digital download, and that's it. So I'll take you through that, but the other thing I promised you, which I'll do with my remaining time, is just give you the habits. Right? So we talked a little bit about the trends, the 5 trends that I think were really relevant for you, and I picked those based on relevance for this group, for this audience. But I also want you to be able to do some of this for yourself. So I'm going to give you 5 super quick stories, super quick habits, and then we're going to be done and we'll happily be on our way and you can get the digital download and all that stuff. So the 5 habits are here, but I'm going to dig into each one of them slightly in detail, right? So the first one, how to be observant, is essentially all about watching processes in action. And so I kind of landed on this because I was at a dinner event and I was watching what the wait staff was doing at this dinner event. And one guy was the lead waiter, and he took everybody's order, and there were 20 people in this sort of long table. He took everybody's order for their dessert. And there were 2 options. There was a chocolate dessert, and there was like a lemon tart something. So of course I ordered the chocolate, because chocolate is real dessert, and everything else is like a waste of time. And people placed their orders, and this guy took everybody's order, and 5 minutes later, an army of 8 people comes and they all deliver everybody's dessert and they get every single dessert right. Has anybody ever been at a dinner like that where like they deliver everything? Do you ever wonder how they do that? I mean, were the other people listening on some sort of microphone? Like how did this one guy who took all the orders relay that information to the other 6 guys? This is the sort of stupid crap I pay attention to, right? This is what being observant means to me, paying attention to stuff like that. And I noticed that the way he did it was with the dessert spoons. If you ordered the chocolate dessert like I did, he took the dessert spoon and he put it on top of your plate. And if you ordered the lemon tart dessert, he took the dessert spoon and he put it on the right-hand side. And so when that army of 8 people came and delivered all the desserts, they just looked at the spoon placement, they looked at where the spoon was, and they delivered the correct dessert based on the spoon placement. That was it. That was the spoon code, the secret code that they used. Now the world is filled with codes like that, spoon codes like that. Little ways that things work, little ways that things get done, reasons why people get upgraded and reasons why people don't, reasons why somebody does something instead of something else. And your ability to observe those codes and translate them translates into understanding the world around you. It makes you a speed understander. But you have to pay attention. I read somewhere recently that gum sales at checkout counters at grocery stores had tanked, gone way down. And the reason why was because when we're checking something out at the grocery store and when we're paying for it, we're no longer looking at that, we're looking at our phone. And so we just look at our phone until it's our turn to pay, we pay and we leave. And we don't even pay attention to the gum or the candy unless you have a kid with you, in which case they want all of it, right? So now gum sales are down because we don't pay attention to the world. We're used to walking around like this and only using our peripheral vision to make sure we don't run into shit so that we don't fall over, right? That's all we use our peripheral vision for. We don't really pay attention. But if you pick your head up, if you stop being observationally lazy, you'll be amazed at the stuff you can notice, even about insignificant stuff like dessert. Second tip, be curious. Being curious is partially about asking questions, but it's also about learning to empathize with people unlike yourself. One of my favorite things to do when I'm traveling is to buy magazines that are clearly not targeted towards me. So when I'm in an airport and I'm looking through the magazine rack, I'll flip through the hunting and fishing section because I'm not a hunter or a fisher, and then I'll look at the teen magazines that are clearly not targeted towards me, and then eventually I'll land on something random like the skating magazine, Thrasher, which is for skateboarding, and I'm not a skateboarder, and I'll pick that magazine up and I'll buy it. And on the airplane, I'll open up this Thrasher magazine and I'll start to see what the language is that they're using to target people who love skateboarding. I'll start to see the same word, shredding, show up multiple times. I'm like, what is shredding? And I'll start to engage my curiosity. I'll see what ads are targeted towards them, and who are the spokespeople who they pay attention to, and what sort of stories are they writing about, who's popular. And all of a sudden, what I've been able to do, figuratively, is step into someone else's shoes. We don't get the chance to do that a lot. In fact, media allows us to do the exact opposite, which is only read and pay attention to stuff we agree with or like. We can filter out everything else. Right? There's a website called Sunny Skies. Anybody know Sunny Skies? Sunny Skies is a website where you can only read happy news. It filters out all news of anybody getting stabbed, anything bad happening in the world, and it only tells you about the story about the little boy who was lost in the mall and then he found his mommy. And that's it. The story's like that. So we can completely filter out exactly what we want. But it's not a good thing. We gotta challenge ourselves. We gotta be curious. And the most effective way I've found to do that is just buy magazines that aren't targeted to you. We can all do that. We all have the opportunity to do that. So I challenge you to do it. Try it. You'll be amazed at what you're able to find and learn just from doing that one simple thing. And it has the benefit of being highly visual because most of us are marketing communications people, so we don't like to read a lot, right? So it's pictures. How great are pictures? We all like pictures. All right. Okay, third tip, be fickle. Now, fickle is not typically considered a good thing, right? Being fickle means you can't pay attention for long periods of time, you shift from one thing to the next, you're not able to focus. But when you're fickle with ideas, two things happen. One is you train yourself not to dwell on something. And not dwelling on something is an amazing quality because what it means is you can let an idea sit until you come back to it and it becomes meaningful in a later moment. How often do we really do that? How often do we go to a conference like this and we write down lots of stuff and then we go back to the office and we write that one email to everybody who wasn't there to justify the fact that we got to be there, and then we leave that notebook somewhere, we forget about it. And if we ever go back to those notes, we think to ourselves, what the heck was I thinking? What did that guy say? He was talking about something with Disney's Magic Band, and then he did this Bollywood thing, and yeah, I kind of remember, but I don't really. And an interesting thing happens when you take notes with Sharpies, which is you're forced to only write the most impactful stuff because the rest of it doesn't fit on a page, right? Sharpies force you to write fewer words. Tweets force you to write fewer words. And when you write fewer words, you only write down what really matters. So challenge yourself to do that. You may not literally have to take notes with Sharpies, but the concept is one that I think you can all get. which is underline things. Put boxes around things. Figure out your own system to remind yourself what actually matters. If something triggers a great idea for a future blog post, write down the word blog next to it in your notes and put a box around it. Because I guarantee you, when you look at that 6 weeks from now, you won't remember that that would have made a great blog post until you put that little box with blog on it. Then you'll be like, oh yeah, I should have written a blog post about that. And you'll jog your own memory. It's great. Fourth tip, be thoughtful. Being thoughtful sometimes requires pausing before speaking. There's a couple of companies I know who are really getting into the mindfulness movement. And one of the things that they do is they institute a moment of silence before any meeting starts. For 2 minutes, they require everybody to just sit there and not say anything. That was 5 seconds. Right? Now, that felt like a long time, right? 2 minutes is a really long time to not say anything. So what happens in those 2 minutes is you're sitting there and you're thinking about all the stuff that you were doing, and then you're thinking about this meeting, and like, why the hell am I here? I got so many other things to do. And then you go through the next process of like, oh my God, what am I gonna have for dinner? And I gotta take my son to soccer practice, and I gotta do this, and I gotta do that. And that all happens in the first minute. And then the second minute, you're like, man, we got another minute left. What are we gonna do? And the stuff just kind of dissolves in that second minute. And by the end of 2 minutes, you're actually centered. And you're ready for the meeting. It's just how your brain works. We all have 2 minutes. And imagine if everybody came into every meeting you had next week centered, without the baggage of anything else going on in their life. I'm not saying you forget about all that stuff, but you're able to let it go because you're thoughtful, you wait for a moment. It has a huge impact in how you appreciate ideas. Try it out. The last tip is be elegant. Use poetic principles. Many of you know this iconic business story of Herb Kelleher first describing the business plan for Southwest Airlines. And the way he described it is he drew this picture on a cocktail napkin. And he said, our business plan is to fly directly between these 3 cities, because that doesn't exist right now. That's our entire business plan. That's why we're creating an airline, to run direct flights between these 3 airlines, these 3 cities. Right? Simple, elegant, poetic. If you think about what poets do, they minimize the number of words that they use. And yes, I'm an English major, so I gravitate towards that direction. But that's what poetry is, using less words to relay ideas in powerful ways. So use less words. Use them judiciously. Choose what you say. Choose what you write down. Illustrate it. Draw it out instead of saying it. It's really powerful. So the first quote I started off with is one that I'd like to return to, which is the idea of being a speed understander. Through all of my work with trends, through all of the idea collection, through all of the different research and conversations and books that I've written and talks that I've given, the same theme keeps coming back, which is if you can focus on being that guy with that small cup of water, jamming out to Ed Sheeran and just enjoying the show, instead of the person who's got to capture everything, you can focus on understanding. And if you can focus on understanding, you can actually get to a point where you learn the superhuman skill of predicting the future. So I promised you this free gift. This is the text code to get the entire book directly to you. The only thing you will get besides the automatic email that gives you the download for the book is an invitation to a webinar where I talk about all 15 trends, and that's free. And you'll get a sneak peek of my 2016 report, because I do the same thing every year. So in January of 2016, I'll produce 15 brand new trends. There'll be a new edition of the book Non-Obvious, and you'll get a sneak peek at some of the trends for that at the end of this year. So that's it. You'll get 2 things if you choose to do this, and immediately you'll get a full digital download of the book. Thank you so much for having me. I hope you enjoy the rest of the day, and I hope you enjoy tomorrow, and thank you.